Welcome, everyone, to a deep dive into, exopolitics. We're going to get you prepped for the Malden Bonkers Network Academy's upcoming course, Beyond Earth, an introduction to exopolitics. So think of this as like a crash course, on extraterrestrial diplomacy, cosmic law, all that. The potential impact of discovering life beyond our little blue planet.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about all that. We might be on the verge of a new era of understanding our place in the cosmos. And the primary source we're using for this deep dive is Miguel Salazar's brand new book, Beyond Earth, published just this year in 2025.
Yeah, and Salazar jumped right into the deep end. He defines exopolitics in Chapter 1, and it goes way beyond just UFO sightings.
Yeah, he really pushes us to think about, what are the political and legal and even ethical implications of interacting with, extraterrestrial civilizations. Can you imagine trying to negotiate a treaty with a species that communicates through telepathy or whose concept of time is totally different from ours?
That's such a good point. I mean, it makes you realize how much of our human systems of governments and law are based on our very specific experience here on this planet.
Exactly. And Salazar actually compares it to the challenges of intercultural communication here on Earth, where misunderstandings and conflicts can happen so easily just because of different values and beliefs.
Right. And now magnify that by, 1,000 when you're dealing with a civilization that evolved under completely different circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. It really underscores the need for new frameworks, new perspective.
So exopolitics is more about preparing for contact, not just figuring out how to say hello, but understanding what it all means for our laws, our societies, even our sense of identity as a species.
Exactly. It's about anticipating the challenges, creating strategies for peaceful and ethical engagement.
Okay, so we've got the definition down, but before we go too deep into like the, interstellar diplomacy and all that, let's step back. How did we even get here? I mean, humans have always been fascinated with the idea of life beyond Earth, right?
Oh, absolutely. Salazar spends a lot of time in Chapter 1 tracing the historical roots of exopolitics, starting way back with the ancient myths and legends about gods and, celestial beings. And it's so fascinating to see how these stories, passed down through generations, they really reflect our deep curiosity about the unknown.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, I mean, were these ancient myths inspired by actual encounters? Or just like a deep-seated need to believe we're not alone in the universe?
It's a question that has intrigued, historians and philosophers for ages. What's clear is that those stories, they laid the groundwork for the more structured approach to exopolitics that really emerged in the 20th century.
Yeah, and that's when things start to really heat up, especially after World War II. You have this surge in UFO sightings, fueled by, in part, Cold War paranoia.
Yeah, and also the development of new technologies like
Yeah,
radar. And it was also the era of government secrecy and these official investigations, like Project Blue Book here in the United States. It's fascinating to see how this secrecy, which was often meant to prevent panic, actually fueled public speculation and all these conspiracy theories.
so the government's attempt to control the narrative might have actually had the opposite effect, making people more interested in UFOs.
Yeah, it's a classic example of unintended consequences in history, and it highlights this recurring theme in exopolitics, the tension between transparency and national security.
Right, and that tension only becomes more, pronounced as we move into the late 20th and early 21st centuries. Salazar points out a key shift in focus. Instead of asking, are we alone? People are starting to ask, okay, what if we're not alone?
It's a much more mature and nuanced way of thinking about it, and it reflects this growing recognition that contact with extraterrestrial life could have such a profound impact, not just for science, but for society, our culture, and even our understanding of what it means to be human.
It's like we've moved from that childhood wonder to a more adult realization that contact could be both amazing and terrifying.
Exactly. And that realization has fueled this growing movement demanding transparency from governments. You know about what they know about UFOs and potential extraterrestrial activity.
Right, and that's where we get into the whole UFO disclosure movement, which Salazar delves into in Chapter 3. It's such a fascinating and often controversial aspect of exopolitics.
Absolutely. You have all these individuals and groups who believe that governments are withholding evidence of extraterrestrial contact and are pushing for the release of this information to the public.
Right, but it's not just as simple as, show us the aliens, right? I mean, there are legitimate concerns about how much information should be released and how it might impact, national security, global stability.
Absolutely. And Salazar acknowledges those complexities. He points to events like the 2017 New York Times article on the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP. This program investigated reports of UFOs, and its existence wasn't even publicly known until that article.
So you have these potential national security concerns. But then you have people saying, well, look, the government's already investigating this stuff, so why not just be transparent about it?
It's a delicate balance. It's one of the key challenges of exopolitics. How do we navigate the tension between the need for secrecy and the public's right to know?
Right. It reminds me of something you were talking about earlier, that the government's secrecy around UFOs might have actually fueled that public speculation and distrust.
Absolutely. It's a cycle that's hard to break.
Okay, so we have a working definition of exopolitics. We have a sense of its historical roots. And we've touched on this push for transparency. But what are the practical implications of all this? I mean, what happens if we do make contact?
Right, that's where things get really interesting. And Salazar devotes a whole chapter, chapter 2, to exploring these different models of interstellar engagement. He outlines these approaches, from cooperative to defensive, each with their own benefits and risks.
Okay, let's unpack those models a bit. So the cooperative model sounds pretty straightforward. We meet aliens, we share knowledge, maybe we even collaborate on some scientific projects. What could go wrong?
Well, the cooperative model assumes, this level of goodwill and shared interests. But what if those aliens have different motives? What if their values and goals are incompatible with ours?
Or what if they just don't see any benefit in interacting with us at all? I mean, we might be like the cosmic equivalent of ants to them.
Exactly. And that brings us to the defensive model, which prioritizes protecting ourselves from potential threats. So this model involves building up our defenses, developing strategies for dealing with more advanced technologies, maybe even created some kind of a space force.
It's like that Independence Day scenario, but I guess it makes sense to at least consider that possibility, that not all alien encounters will be friendly. But how do we balance that preparedness with the risk of provoking hostility? I mean, do we really want to start an intergalactic war because we were too quick to assume the worst?
It's a valid concern. And Salazar argues that we need to be cautious, avoid projecting our own anxieties and prejudices onto extraterrestrial civilizations. He emphasizes a balanced approach, one that combines, a healthy dose of preparedness with a willingness to engage diplomatically.
So it's about being realistic but not paranoid.
Exactly. Now, in addition to those two models, the cooperative and defensive models, Salazar also presents two others that are a little less familiar, the explorer model and the contingent model.
Tell me more about those. So the explorer model makes me think of, well, explorers. Is it about sending out missions to discover new worlds and make first contact?
In a way, yeah, but it emphasizes scientific curiosity and the potential benefits of learning from other civilizations, even if those civilizations are vastly different from our own.
And what about the contingent model?
The contingent model is all about flexibility and adaptability. It recognizes that we can't predict exactly how first contact's going to unfold or what kind of civilizations we might encounter. So it emphasizes being prepared for a wide range of scenarios and developing strategies that can be adjusted.
So if the cooperative model is about trust and collaboration, and the defensive model is about protecting ourselves, the contingent model is about not being caught off guard.
You could say that. It's about acknowledging the vastness of the unknown and embracing the possibility that our first contact might be something we haven't even imagined.
That's a pretty humbling thought. But it makes sense. I mean, we're so used to thinking in human terms. But the universe is full of possibilities that might completely shatter our, preconceived notions.
Exactly. And that brings us to one of the most mind-blowing and challenging concepts in Salazar's book. Cosmic law.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is cosmic law? Is it like the intergalactic version of the United Nations or something?
It's a fascinating idea, but it's much more complex than that. Salazar argues that if we are part of a larger cosmic community, then there must be some underlying principles or laws that govern the interactions between these civilizations.
But how could there be laws? I mean, we don't even know who's out there or what they believe. It's not like we can just impose our own human laws on the entire universe.
You raise a crucial point. Cosmic law isn't about imposing our own human concepts on other civilizations. It's about trying to understand what are those underlying principles that might foster peaceful coexistence and cooperation within, a diverse and potentially vast cosmic community.
So instead of a rigid set of rules, it's more like a philosophical framework for thinking about our responsibilities as members of this larger cosmic society.
Exactly. And it challenges us to reconsider some of our fundamental assumptions.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, well, take the concept of sovereignty. We think about nations as having sovereignty over their territories. But what happens when those territories extend beyond Earth? What are the rights and responsibilities of these extraterrestrial civilizations? Do they have a claim to their planets or star systems?
Whoa. That's a huge question. It really makes you realize how limited our current legal frameworks are when it comes to thinking about interstellar relations.
Exactly, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Cosmic law also delves into things like interdependence, the idea that our actions here on Earth could have ripple effects across the galaxy. It encourages us to think about the long-term consequences of our choices and to consider the impact we're having on a cosmic scale.
It's almost like we're being asked to grow up as a species, to recognize that we're not just citizens of one nation or one planet, but members of this much larger community.
Exactly, and that comes with a whole set of new responsibilities. We can't just act in our own self-interest. We have to consider the well-being of that entire cosmic community.
That's a profound shift in perspective. But it's also a bit overwhelming. I mean, where do we even begin? How do we create a system of cosmic law when we don't even know who else is out there or what they believe?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's one that Salazar explores in depth in Chapter 4. He argues that we need to start by examining our own values and beliefs, identifying the ones that might be universal, and the ones that are specific to our human experience.
So it's about finding that common ground, those principles that might resonate with any intelligent civilization, regardless of their, biology or cultural background.
Exactly. It's a process that requires humility and a willingness to learn from others. We can't assume that we have all the answers.
I'm starting to see why this Bald and Bonkers Network Academy course is so important. I mean, this is stuff we should all be thinking about. It's not just science fiction anymore. It's about the future of humanity in this cosmic context.
You got it. Exopolitics is about so much more than UFOs and aliens. It's about understanding our place in the universe, our responsibilities to other life forms, and the potential for creating this peaceful and harmonious future for all.
Wow. We covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We defined exopolitics, we explored its historical roots, and delved into the complexities of interstellar engagement and cosmic law.
Yeah, it's been an insightful journey so far, and we've only just scratched the surface.
Stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into exopolitics, where we're going to dive into the fascinating world of documented alien encounters and how these events have shaped our understanding of the unknown.
We'll examine some specific cases, analyze the evidence, and discuss the implications for understanding extraterrestrial life and the future of exopolitics.
The journey you won't want to miss.
As we delve deeper into exopolitics, it becomes clear we're not just dealing with, abstract concepts and hypothetical scenarios.
Right, we need to look at real-world experiences, the actual encounters people have reported throughout history.
Exactly, and Salazar does a great job of this in Chapter 7. He examines a range of documented cases, starting with perhaps the most famous of them all, Roswell.
Ah, Roswell, the holy grail of UFO lore. Even after all these years, it continues to fascinate and spark debate. Why do you think that is? What is it about Roswell that captures our imaginations so much?
Well, I think for one, it has all the elements of a great mystery. You have a crashed object, strange debris, conflicting accounts from witnesses, whispers of a government cover-up. It's like a real-life X-Files episode.
Right, and it happened during a time when Cold War tensions were high. Adding another layer of intrigue, people were already looking to the skies wondering what secrets were being hidden.
Yeah, and the official explanations from the government just didn't seem to add up for a lot of people, and that fueled all the speculation and conspiracy theories that persist even to this day.
It's interesting how Roswell has become this cultural touchstone. It's almost like a Rorschach test for how people view the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Some see it as definitive proof, while others dismiss it as a hoax or misinterpretation.
And that's the challenge with a lot of these historical cases. The evidence is often ambiguous, leaving room for multiple interpretations.
Right.
But even if we can't definitively prove what happened at Roswell, it raises important questions about government transparency and the public's right to know.
Yeah, I think that's a crucial point. Regardless of whether you believe in aliens or not, Roswell highlights the need for open and honest communication when it comes to potential extraterrestrial contact.
Absolutely. And as we move further into the 21st century, we see this demand for transparency becoming even more pronounced. I mean, the internet and social media have played a huge role, allowing people to share information, connect with others who have had similar experiences, and really push for answers.
It's created a global network of citizen investigators and researchers, many of whom are determined to uncover the truth about UFOs and government secrecy.
Right, and that brings us to another fascinating case that Salazar explores. The Phoenix Lights incident of 1997.
The Phoenix Lights. Thousands of people witnessed those strange lights in the sky. It wasn't just a few isolated reports, it was a mass sighting. It made national news.
Yeah, and unlike Roswell, which happened decades earlier, the Phoenix Lights occurred in an era of widespread video cameras and cell phones. So there's actually quite a bit of footage of the event.
It's almost like as a society, we are becoming more equipped to document these unexplained phenomena.
Exactly. And the sheer number of witnesses makes it difficult to dismiss the Phoenix Lights as just, mistaken identity or mass hysteria.
Right.
It raises the question, if so many people saw the same thing, what were they actually looking at?
It's interesting how the Phoenix Lights, like Roswell, really highlight the diversity of UFO sightings. Some people report seeing simple lights in the sky, while others describe complex objects maneuvering in ways that defy our understanding of physics.
Yeah, that's a recurring theme in ufology, and it adds to the complexity of trying to understand these phenomena. I mean, are we dealing with a single type of craft or technology, or are we observing a range of different things that we're just lumping together under this umbrella of UFOs?
It's a question that scientists and researchers are still grappling with. But regardless of the explanations, these sightings challenge our assumptions about what's possible and force us to confront the limits of our understanding of the universe.
And as we continue to explore these cases, we start to see certain patterns emerge. For example, there's a notable increase in reported UFO sightings near military bases and nuclear facilities.
Well, that's something that Salazar touches on in Chapter 8, right? He talks about the potential national security implications of UFO activity.
Exactly. If these objects are indeed extraterrestrial in origin, and they're demonstrating an interest in our military capabilities or nuclear technology, well, that raises some serious concerns.
It makes you wonder about their intentions. Are they simply observing us? Are they concerned about our potential to use these technologies in a harmful way? Or could there be something more sinister at play?
Those are questions that we as a species need to be asking. We can't afford to be naive or dismissive when it comes to the possibility of, advanced extraterrestrial civilizations taking an interest in our activities.
And this is where the need for a more coordinated and transparent approach to exopolitics becomes so crucial. I mean, we need our governments and our military agencies to take these reports seriously, to investigate them thoroughly, and to share their findings with the public in a responsible way.
I agree. We can't rely on secrecy and denial to address this issue. We need to foster a culture of open inquiry and evidence-based decision-making.
Okay, so we talked about Roswell, the Phoenix Lights, and the potential national security implications of UFO sightings. Are there any other historical cases that you think are particularly noteworthy?
Well, one that stands out is the 2004 USS Nimitz encounter. This case involves multiple Navy pilots and radar operators observing these strange, tic-tac-shaped objects off the coast of California.
You mean the objects that were caught on those Pentagon videos?
Those are the ones. What makes the Nimitz case so compelling is that it involved these highly trained military personnel, people who are accustomed to identifying and assessing, aerial threats. They weren't easily fooled or mistaken.
And they were describing objects performing maneuvers that defied our understanding of aerodynamics. Things like sudden accelerations, right-angle turns, and the ability to disappear and reappear in an instant.
Exactly. And the fact that the Pentagon eventually acknowledged the authenticity of that footage will lend even more credibility to the encounter.
It's interesting to think about how the nature of these encounters has evolved over time. Early reports often involved, distant lights in the sky or blurry photographs. But with advances in technology, we're now seeing clearer images, radar data, and even videos captured by military aircraft.
It's almost like we're getting closer to a more definitive understanding of what these objects are and where they might be coming from.
But it also raises the stakes. If we're dealing with technology that surpasses our own, it has profound implications for our understanding of physics, our technological development, and even our place in the cosmic hierarchy.
That's a sobering thought. It highlights the need to proceed with caution and humility as we continue to explore the mysteries of the universe.
So we've examined some of the most well-documented cases. But what about the countless other reports of UFO sightings that haven't garnered as much attention? Are they all just hoaxes or misinterpretations?
That's a question that researchers have been grappling with for decades. And while Salazar acknowledges that some reports can be attributed to, misidentified aircraft, weather phenomena, or even hoaxes, he argues that there remains a significant number of cases that defy conventional explanation.
And it's those cases, the ones that can't be easily dismissed, that keep us wondering and searching for answers.
Exactly, and they fuel the ongoing debate about the nature of these phenomena and the possibility of extraterrestrial life.
It's like we have this giant puzzle with some missing pieces. We have glimpses, hints, these tantalizing clues, but we're still trying to assemble the complete picture.
And each new case, each new piece of evidence, brings us a little closer to understanding the truth.
Well, this has been a fascinating exploration of some of the key historical encounters that have shaped our understanding of UFOs and the possibility of extraterrestrial life.
It's amazing to think about how these events, spanning decades and continents, They continue to capture our imaginations and fuel our desire to understand the unknown.
But it's important to remember that we're not just dealing with historical curiosities. These encounters have a real-world implications, raising questions about government transparency, national security, and even the future of humanity.
Absolutely. As we move forward, it's crucial that we approach these issues with a balance of skepticism and open-mindedness, a willingness to question our assumptions, and to embrace the possibility that the universe might hold mysteries far beyond our current comprehension.
On that note, let's shift gears a bit and explore how these historical encounters and this ongoing debate about UFOs have influenced, public perception and societal beliefs about extraterrestrial life.
That's a great transition because, as we've seen, these encounters don't just happen in isolation. They ripple outwards, influencing how we view ourselves, our planet, and our place in the cosmos.
Right. I'm curious to dive into that. It seems like public opinion about UFOs and extraterrestrial life has shifted quite a bit in recent years. What do you think has contributed to that shift?
Well, for one, there's been a growing awareness of the sheer number of these reported sightings and encounters. It's becoming harder to dismiss them as simply the ramblings of a few fringe enthusiasts.
Yeah. You also have these credible sources like military pilots and government officials coming forward and saying, hey, we've seen this stuff too, and it's not explainable.
Right, and that carries a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And the internet and social media have played a huge role in disseminating this information. Connecting people who have had similar experiences, it's created this global community of individuals who are no longer afraid to share their stories and to demand answers.
It's almost like the stigma associated with talking about UFOs is starting to fade. People are realizing they're not alone in their beliefs, and that it's okay to question the official narratives.
That's a really important point. For decades, there was this sense that if you talked about UFOs, you were automatically labeled a conspiracy theorist or, someone who wasn't grounded in reality.
Right.
But as more evidence emerges and as more and more respected individuals come forward, well, that perception is starting to change.
And this shift in public opinion is reflected in survey data as well. Recent polls show a significant increase in the number of people who believe that extraterrestrial life exists and that we've been visited by alien civilizations.
It seems like we're at a tipping point. The question is no longer do aliens exist, but what are the implications of their existence for humanity?
That's a profound question, and it's one that Salazar explores in detail in Chapter 10. He argues that the acceptance of extraterrestrial life has the potential to fundamentally change our understanding of ourselves, our place in the universe, our relationship to other life forms.
Right. It challenges our assumptions about our uniqueness, our dominance, even the meaning of life itself.
And that realization can be both exhilarating and terrifying. It's exciting to imagine the possibilities of interacting with other civilizations, learning from their knowledge and experiences. But it's also daunting to consider the potential challenges, even threats, that might come with such encounters.
That's the duality of exopolitics. It's a field that's filled with wonder and awe, but also with uncertainty and risk.
And it requires us to develop a new set of tools and frameworks for navigating this uncharted territory.
Exactly. We need to move beyond our anthropocentric biases, to embrace the vastness and diversity of the cosmos, and to prepare ourselves for a future where humanity is no longer the only player on the cosmic stage.
It's a call to action, a challenge to expand our horizons, to embrace the unknown.
And speaking of expanding our horizons, let's venture into the realm where reality and imagination collide, the intersection of science fiction and exopolitics.
Oh yeah, Chapter 11 of Salazar's book is a real treat for any sci-fi fan, but it goes beyond just geeking out about spaceships and aliens. He makes this compelling case for how science fiction has actually helped shape our understanding of exopolitics.
It's fascinating to think about. Science fiction has been grappling with these questions for decades, long before exopolitics became, a formal field of study. And in many ways, science fiction has paved the way for these discussions. It's allowed us to explore the possibilities of alien contact, to think about the ethical dilemmas, and to imagine all the different ways those interactions could play out.
It's like a mental training ground for exopolitics. We can explore different scenarios, test out different approaches, and grapple with the moral implications, all without the safe confines of our imagination.
And some of those stories have had a profound impact on how we think about these issues. Take Childhood to End by Arthur C. Clarke. It explores the idea of a technologically advanced alien race that arrives on Earth and essentially guides humanity towards a new era of peace and understanding.
It's a thought-provoking look at how contact with a more advanced civilization could fundamentally change us, for better or for worse.
Right, and then you have Philip K. Dick's The Man in the High Castle, which explores a very different scenario, a world where the Axis powers won World War II and now occupy the United States.
It's a chilling reminder that contact with other beings, whether they be for another planet or another country, can have profound consequences. And those consequences aren't always positive.
Exactly, and it highlights the importance of power dynamics, the potential for manipulation, and the ways in which these different ideologies can clash.
And we can't forget Isaac Asimov's epic Foundation series. It spans centuries and galaxies, exploring the rise and fall of empires, the complexities of interstellar governance, and the potential for predicting and shaping the future.
Asimov really gives us a lot to chew on when it comes to the long-term implications of exopolitics. He forces us to think about things like resource scarcity, technological advancement, and the ethical challenges of interacting with civilizations that are at different stages of development.
And of course, no discussion of science fiction's impact on exopolitics would be complete without mentioning Star Trek. It's been inspiring generations with its vision of a future where humanity has embraced exploration, diplomacy, and this commitment to peaceful coexistence with other species.
Star Trek really captured the public's imagination with its optimistic view of the future and its emphasis on ethical considerations in our interactions with the unknown.
And who doesn't love a good starship battle every now and then?
Of course, but Star Trek also reminds us that violence should always be a last resort. It's about using our intelligence, our compassion, and our ingenuity to find peaceful solutions.
So science fiction has given us these incredible stories, thought-provoking scenarios, glimpses into what might be possible. But how can we use those stories to shape future exopolitical thought?
Well, for one, we need to keep telling those stories. We need to keep exploring those possibilities, challenging our assumptions, and pushing the boundaries of our imagination. Because the more we think about these issues, the better prepared we'll be when and if we encounter extraterrestrial life.
And we need to be critical of the messages that those stories are sending. Are we portraying aliens as inherently hostile or benevolent? Are we perpetuating stereotypes or embracing diversity?
Exactly. Science fiction has the power to shape public perception, so we need to be mindful of the narratives that we're creating.
And we need to use those narratives to start conversations, to bring these topics out of the realm of science fiction and into the realm of serious discussion and policymaking.
Because the future of exopolitics is being written right now, and we all have a role to play in shaping that future.
Well said. It seems like we've covered a vast expanse of territory in this deep dive, from historical encounters to the power of storytelling. So as we prepare for this upcoming Bald and Bonkers Network Academy course, what are some of the key takeaways?
That's a great question. I think one of the biggest takeaways is that exopolitics is a field that's in its infancy. We're still trying to define what it is, what it encompasses, and how to approach it responsibly.
You're absolutely right. It's both exhilarating and daunting to think about how much we still don't know.
It is, but it also presents this unique opportunity to shape the future of this field. I mean, we're not bound by centuries of precedent or established dogma. We have the chance to create something truly new, something that reflects our values and aspirations as a species.
And I think that's what makes this course so exciting. It's not just about learning facts and theories. It's about engaging in a dialogue, exploring different perspectives, and challenging ourselves to think critically about the implications of extraterrestrial contact.
Exactly. It's about equipping ourselves with the knowledge and tools to navigate this new frontier responsibly and to ensure that humanity's journey into the cosmos is one that's marked by, peace, understanding, and a deep respect for all life forms.
Beautifully said. So as we wrap up part 2 of our deep dive into exopolitics, what can our listeners look forward to in the final installment?
Well, we've explored the past and present of exopolitics, but in part 3, we'll turn our attention to the future. We'll delve into Salazar's concluding chapter, where he outlines the potential challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
We'll discuss strategies for fostering peaceful and ethical interactions with extraterrestrial civilizations, examine the role of technology in shaping our understanding of the universe, and explore the implications of exopolitics for the long-term survival and evolution of humanity.
It's going to be a thought-provoking and inspiring exploration of what might be possible. And we invite all of you to join us for the final leg of this incredible journey.
Stay tuned for part 3 of our deep dive into exopolitics, where we'll explore the future of humanity in this cosmic context. It's a conversation you won't want to miss. So we've journeyed through the historical roots of exopolitics, explored compelling accounts of alien encounters, and even dipped our toes into the vast ocean of cosmic law. But now as we reach the final part of our deep dive, Let's shift our focus to the future.
It's time to look beyond what we know and imagine what might be to consider the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead as we continue to explore the possibility of life beyond Earth.
And luckily, Salazar provides a roadmap for this exploration in the concluding chapter of Beyond Earth, his conclusion and future directions.
He doesn't shy away from the magnitude of what we're dealing with. This isn't just about satisfying scientific curiosity or confirming what science fiction has hinted at for decades. It's about redefining our place in the universe, understanding our responsibilities as members of a potentially vast cosmic community.
So where do we even begin? What are the practical steps we can take to prepare for a future that might include contact with extraterrestrial civilizations?
Salazar emphasizes the importance of proactive engagement, and that starts with education and awareness. We need to equip people with the knowledge and critical thinking skills to engage with these topics responsibly and to make informed decisions about the future.
So it's not just about scientists and governments figuring this out in isolation. It's about engaging the public in a meaningful way.
Exactly. We need to move beyond the era of sensationalism and conspiracy theories and foster a more nuanced and informed understanding of exopolitics. And that means creating opportunities for open and honest dialogue, embracing diverse perspectives, and challenging our own assumptions.
It's about shifting the cultural conversation, moving exopolitics from the fringes to the mainstream.
Precisely, and education is just the first step. We also need to think about the practical challenges of extraterrestrial diplomacy. How do we establish communication with a species that might have completely different ways of perceiving and interacting with the world?
It's a question that has fascinated science fiction writers for ages, and Salazar acknowledges that we can learn a lot from those imaginative explorations he suggests, drawing on fields like linguistics, anthropology, and even art and music to develop new approaches to communication.
It's about thinking outside the box, recognizing that communication isn't just about words, but about shared experiences, emotions, and perhaps even something we haven't yet conceived of.
It makes you wonder if there's some fundamental form of communication, some universal language that transcends the barriers of species and culture.
That's a fascinating possibility, and it's one that scientists are actively exploring. Some researchers believe that mathematics might be a universal language, a way of expressing concepts and relationships that any intelligent civilization could understand.
It makes sense. Math is, after all, the language of the universe, the underlying structure that governs everything from the movement of planets to the behavior of subatomic particles.
Exactly, and it's a language that we already share with any potential extraterrestrial civilizations out there.
Okay, so let's assume we figure out the communication puzzle. What are some of the other challenges we might face as we venture further into the realm of exopolitics?
Well, one of the biggest challenges, as we've discussed earlier, is navigating the tension between transparency and national security. How do we balance the public's right to know with the need to protect sensitive information that could impact global stability?
It's a dilemma that governments around the world are already grappling with, and it becomes even more complex when you're dealing with the possibility of extraterrestrial contact.
Salazar argues that we need to move towards a more open and collaborative approach, one that involves sharing information responsibly with the public while also taking steps to safeguard national security.
But how do we do that in practice? It's not an easy balance to strike.
It's not, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution. It will require a combination of clear guidelines, effective communication strategies, and a willingness to adapt to changing circumstances.
Another challenge that comes to mind is the potential impact of exopolitics on our technological development. What happens if we encounter a civilization that's far more advanced than our own?
That's a question that has both fascinated and frightened us for decades. The possibility of encountering a technologically superior civilization raises a host of ethical and practical concerns.
On the one hand, we could potentially benefit from their knowledge and expertise, accelerating our own progress in fields like medicine, energy, and space travel.
But on the other hand, we also need to be aware of the potential risks. What if this technology falls into the wrong hands? What if it's used for harmful purposes?
It's like opening Pandora's box. We might unleash forces that we can't control.
That's why it's so important to approach technological exchange with caution and to establish clear ethical guidelines. Salazar suggests creating a framework for responsible innovation, one that prioritizes the well-being of humanity and the preservation of our planet.
That makes sense. We need to be mindful of the potential consequences of our actions, both for ourselves and for future generations.
And we need to remember that technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for evil. Ultimately, it's our choices, our values, and our wisdom that will determine how we use this technology and whether it leads us towards a brighter future or a darker path.
It's a heavy responsibility, but it's one that we can't shy away from as we venture further into the realm of exopolitics. We're not just explorers, we're pioneers shaping the future of humanity's relationship with the cosmos.
And that's both a privilege and a challenge. We have the opportunity to create a new era of peace, understanding, and cooperation, but it will require us to be our best selves, to draw on our collective wisdom and compassion, and to embrace the unknown with both curiosity and courage.
Well, you've given us a lot to think about as we wrap up this deep dive. I'm left with a sense of awe and excitement about the possibilities that lie ahead. It's clear that exopolitics is a field that's just beginning to blossom, and I can't wait to see where this journey takes us.
Me too. And remember, whether you're a seasoned exopolitics enthusiast or just starting to explore this fascinating field, the Bald and Bonkers Network Academy course, Beyond Earth. An introduction to exopolitics is the perfect place to delve deeper. It's designed to provide a comprehensive foundation for understanding this emerging field, covering everything from historical accounts to future challenges.
Absolutely. It's a course that's not just about learning facts, but about expanding our horizons, challenging our assumptions, and imagining a future where humanity embraces its role as a member of a vast and diverse cosmic community.
I have a feeling this is just the beginning of a fascinating adventure.
Until next time, keep looking up, keep asking questions, and keep your minds open to